had the privilege of attending the International Women's Day rally in Belfast this year. The theme? Strengthening Solidarity. Couldn't have been more fitting. Organized by the Women's Collective Reclaimed Agenda, the event was a reminder that International Women's Day isn't about the flowers or the cupcakes or the token gestures. It's about recognizing the impact of women in our society and across the world. It's about celebrating the progress we've made, the strength we carry, and the future we continue to shape while acknowledging that there is still so much work ahead. And the only way forward is together, supporting organizations, uplifting individuals, and refusing to accept injustice as inevitable. At the rally, former Irish President Mary Robinson delivered a powerful and deeply resonant speech, one that I want to share with you today. Her words cut through the noise of the moment and spoke directly to the challenges women face, not just in Ireland but globally. Mary Robinson reminds us that misogyny is not an abstract concept. It lives and breathes on social media, in workplaces, in institutions, and the everyday experiences of women. She spoke about how every woman who stands up, or even those who don't, become a target for hostility simply for existing in public spaces. She also turned our attention to the environmental crisis, calling it the biggest threat to our future. And she's right. Climate justice and gender justice are inseparable. Women, especially those in vulnerable communities, are disproportionately affected by environmental degradation. Robinson highlighted the importance of food sovereignty in Ireland, pointing to initiatives like Project Dandelion, which empower communities to reclaim control over their food system and build resilience from the ground up. These projects aren't about agriculture, but about dignity, autonomy, and the right to thrive. And then she said something that stayed with me long after the rally ended. Violence against women affects everyone we know: our mothers, our grandmothers, our sisters, our friends, and our girlfriends. It's not a women's issue, it's a societal issue, a human issue, and it demands collective action. This is her speech.
I'm delighted to be here in Belfast to mark International Women's Day. You know, I didn't say celebrate, I said mark International Women's Day, and I'm delighted to do it together with the speakers who have spoken about the situation here in Northern Ireland, but also about the international issues that we must remember on this day, International Women's Day. We have an epidemic, as has been said, of violence against women. 1 in 3 women have suffered domestic or sexual violence or financial violence, as we've heard from one of the speakers. We also have women in poverty who are driven into even greater poverty because of a withdrawal, a cutback in essential support and services, because of what is happening in our world. It's already been mentioned, the wars. We've had too many wars. We've had wars that we don't focus on much. Wars in the Democratic Republic of Congo for a long time, with terrible suffering for women and girls. We've had a war in Sudan, which has been worse than Gaza, but not got the attention. We've had the situation in Gaza and the West Bank with a lot of attention, which hasn't changed the dynamics sufficiently. It hasn't stopped what is happening and continues to happen in Gaza and increasingly in the West Bank. And now we've had the war in Ukraine, which has caused many European countries to spend huge budgets on military spending that mean cutbacks on essential overseas development aid and other aid. In 2025, I understand 5 European countries have cut back on sexual and reproductive health and rights. So we're seeing the cutbacks because we're seeing the military spending. And now, as has been mentioned several times, we have the war by Israel and the United States on Iran, which has opened up such devastation in the Middle East, including in Lebanon. In Iran itself, as we've heard, and elsewhere in the broader Middle East. The war in Ukraine was not justified under the UN Charter. Russia invaded Ukraine in a way that was not justified, attacked Ukraine. The United States and Israel have attacked Ukraine in a way that is not compliant, not part of what the UN Charter says. So we're seeing an undermining of rule of law, which is very worrying for our world, because it's a rule of power. It's a rule by power rather than a rule of law. We must counter that. So we have a lot of issues that require exactly what the theme of this International Women's Day here in Belfast is: strength in solidarity. I want to talk a little bit about strength in solidarity, because I see the different ways in which you've come together in solidarity in this rally here in Belfast. And we have to grow that solidarity and grow it in ways that strengthen it in order to counter a very severe range of backlashes against rights now. There is actually an agenda of the Trump administration which is white, racist, Christian, nationalist, anti-immigrant. And they're trying to have the same position in Europe. They're linking with far-right parties in Europe. They're linking on this island of Ireland. There's a lot of money behind this. And of course, this is devastating also for women and girls. And then we have the misogyny of social media, the bullying and misogyny for any woman that stands up, or even if they don't stand up. The misogyny for women and girls is an extraordinary dark part of social media now, and getting worse. Getting worse because AI is enabling the denuding of women and girls, and the ways in which it's possible to literally try to destroy people's lives through attacks on social media. All of this, it needs the strength in solidarity. So what I thought I might do is give you a sense of what we're trying to do in the face of another crisis, which hasn't paused because of war. The climate and nature crisis continues to be the biggest threat to our future, believe me. And we don't tend to understand that fully. I recently took on another hat that impresses my youngest grandchildren, aged 11, 8, and 5. I have become a guardian of the planetary boundaries. And they think this is Star Wars, very, very apparent. But actually, it developed the work of a wonderful scientist called Johann Rockström and his center in Germany, the Potsdam Center Institute. And they looked at the ecosystem that sustain light. They find there are 9 planetary boundaries, and we are in reach of 7 of them. And they interact with each other. And we are in very real danger within the next 10 years of losing the coral reefs. The coral reefs sustain so much life, and they will make it so difficult in different parts of the world. We're also in danger of losing the Amazon. I was at Belém, maybe what some of you were in the conference on climate in Brazil, in Belém, in the Amazon. We heard from experts the Amazon itself is at risk. What are we doing? And we may lose the AMOC, as it's called, that keeps the Irish temperature where it is. We could lose that, the way we're going. So it's not a case of frightening people for the sake of it, though it is very frightening. It's more, what are we doing about it? And I wanted to tell you what women leaders are doing about the climate and nature crisis, because I think there's a lesson for all of us in this. When we started Project Dandelion. I'm wearing the symbol. It's on. I should be wearing the symbol of Project Dandelion. The dandelion is a weed, but it's also a beautiful flower. It's just humans that call it a weed. It's a beautiful flower of nature. It grows on all continents. It's got very deep roots that regenerate the soil. It's very resilient, which is a good finite word, because you can't get rid of the damn thing if you want to. It will come back through the cracks. And there's no waste. Another very good thing for the climate, no waste. You could eat or drink every part of the dandelion. And how do you spill? You just blow. Blow the seeds. And very often when children blow the seeds, they wish. There was a wish and a blow. What we're doing with this weed that is our symbol is we're connecting all of the women-led climate movements. And we have succeeded in a way that I wouldn't have believed would make such a difference. Before we reached out with this light touch symbol that would unite us all, the organizations were in their own space, watching their own funding, in their own silo, if you like, and liking each other but not connecting, not partnering, not working together, not collaborating. Now it's different. If you go to a conference on climate, if you go to a COP, if you go to a UN meeting, you see women wearing the dandelion, affirming the other, being stronger because they're talking openly about what the others are doing. This is what we need. We need to affirm our strength, to grow our strength. So each of you belonging to one organization, reach out and find common ground with other organizations. Grow your strength, because that's the way we will counter the very massive forces in our world today, which are very negative and dark. We need the light. We need to shine a light. Let me just give you an example briefly of, I talked about Project Dandelion at the global level. There's also now beginning a Project Dandelion Ireland. And Project Dandelion Ireland is focusing on the climate and nature crisis, and we have decided to work on food sovereignty. Food sovereignty on the island of Ireland. We are not too sovereign. We are actually in the Republic. I know the figure is better than I know here in Northern Ireland. In the Republic, we import 85% of the food we consume. But then we have our beef and dairy, and we export 90% of our beef and dairy. So we grow far more than we use ourselves. We export it. So we're using globalization both ways, and frankly, emissions both ways when you think about it, because emissions coming in and emissions going out. But we're not against, we're actually pro-farming in Project Dandelion Ireland, but we're pro-diversity. We want to encourage much more horticulture. We want to encourage much more farming that is close to nature, regenerative farming, agroecology. And what we found is there are people all over the island of Ireland who are doing this, who are linking together and doing it, but they haven't been visible up to now. We want to shine a light on them to encourage that this is an example. It's an example of strength through solidarity. It's a great team for the moment because we need our strength. We need the strength in tackling violence against women and girls. We need the strength in tackling the cutbacks on essential services that are increasing the poverty of women and girls. So we need to know how we can work together. And I'm going to give you a human rights grounding for this. It's a human rights grounding from the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which was adopted in 1948 by the United Nations. And it's the grounding of all human rights at the international levels. And when I was High Commissioner for Human Rights, We marked the 50th anniversary in 1998, 50th anniversary of the Universal Declaration, and I got the Guinness Book of Records because it was the most read document in the whole world. So I had that book, Guinness Book of Records. But actually, I never fully understood the importance of one article that will probably surprise you, but if we haven't talked enough about it in the human rights world, we talk about Article 1, and I can recite that by heart for you. Everyone, well, when I say I can recite it, I'm focused on the other article. I'd recite that instead. And Article 29 is the second last article. And listen to what it says, because it's really very important. Everyone has duties to the community in which alone the free and full expression of their personality is possible. So you have to know you had duties to the community, and you have to do something about it, or you yourself don't reach your full potential. Now, I've seen heads nodding when I said that, because people know if you give to the other, if you work in community, if you work for the other, you get far more back. We don't quite understand why, but you do. But far more back. So we have a wonderful word in Ireland, mehel. And mehel has been associated with people coming together voluntarily. But it's not actually voluntarily, it's duty to community. That we must do more of that. And that also will help our strength in solidarity. Why do we need that so much in our world today? I'll tell you why, and I'll finish with this, not in a negative sense. We need Article 29, we need the duties to community, we need community more than we've ever needed. It is because we're getting a tax on truth. What is truth? We have an administration in the United States which is flooding the atmosphere with lies, not to be believed, but to confuse. To be confused as original soup, or the original soup. So what is truth? Truth is our relations with each other. In sub-Saharan Africa, they call it Ubuntu. I am because you are. Ubuntu. In Brazil, at the last COP, I learned they call it mutual. Mutual means we are a community together. And in Ireland, we have mehel. We have that wonderful saying, it's our scocha chéile, a Warren Nadini. It is in each other's shadows that we flourish. And that is what we must do. We must flourish together. We must know there is strength in our solidarity through that solidarity. And it's great to see so many young people here drawing that solidarity.
As we close this International Women's Day episode, I want to leave you with a spirit that carried through the rally in Belfast. A spirit of courage, connection, and collective responsibility. Today isn't just a date on the calendar, but a reminder that progress is something we build together, step by step, voice by voice. The speaker's words echo long after the applauses fade and reminded us that the challenges women face, from misogyny to environmental justice, economic inequality, to the violence that touches far too many lives, are not isolated issues. There are threads in the same fabric, and when one thread is pulled, the whole tapestry shifts. So let's choose to be part of that shift. Let's choose solidarity over silence, action over apathy, and hope over resignation. Think of the women who have shaped you, the women who walk beside you, and the women who will come after you. Think of the world they deserve, safer, fairer, more sustainable, and the role each of us can play in bringing it closer. Thank you for listening, for reflecting, and for standing in this movement for equality. Strength in solidarity is a commitment, and together we can carry forward. This podcast is produced by the Change Impact Group.